Howdy, it's tubalcain again, and welcome back to my videos. Now, if you watched the last video, which was number 391, it was entitled Making a Casting with an Irregular Parting Line, and that was using the parting down method, and you watched me make these star bottle caps by that method, and this was the original, and here is the one done by the parted down method. Now, make sure that you go back and watch that other video, or some of this will not make any sense to you. And this is for foundry lovers and casters. So I'm going to use a different method and make another one of these today. And the method is called the follow block method, or the follow plate method, or follower block. And you know, there's a lot of different names for it. Maybe you've never seen anybody done it before, and it's probably not done by this method. This is my method that I came up with, or I saw somebody do it. I'm really not sure where I came up with it, but and it might seem rather strange to you, and some of this is experimentation, but it does work out. So let me start by showing you some of the experiments that I did with this in order to make that follow block. This is what a follow block looks like, and in some ways it looks like a dental appliance. I mentioned that in the other video. Matter of fact, it kind of looks like my grandmother's teeth, only they would have been pink and in a jar at night. So that aside, let me show you how I started out making this, and this is the final version, but yet I'm going to make another one here as we progress, and this will be a fairly long video as well. But I started by going to the dollar store and buying two different products here. I bought some of this children's modeling dough. They don't call it clay anymore, they call it dough. And then someplace here I've got the other tag, if I can find it. I'll show you the other product. But there were two different products, but they were rather similar. Came in two different sizes here. You got a 8-pack there for $1, and the other one I think was a 2-pack. And there's the other one for $1. It's called Softy Dough. I'm not sure there's any difference between the two, but I experimented with both of them, and that's what it looks like. And it's something like children's Play-Doh. That's a brand name. And I do like the smell of this very much. But using these two different products, I came up with this, and they were unusable. And really unusable because they do not harden. This was done 3 or 4 days ago, and you can see it's still just as soft as when it came out of the, and it's relatively delicate when it came out of, well, what I'm going to do right now. So let me show you that. I'll reenact that right now, and I'm going to use this green Play-Doh, and I'm going to use this bottle opener. We talked a lot about the brand, Star brand here. But I took some of this, and it's quite soft, as you know. I don't know if that's a big enough piece or not, so I'll put two together. And I simply took this and I sprayed it first with a little silicone, and I also tried some other products too, but the silicone seemed to work real well. Now, when you work with a pattern, this is a casting. I'm using a casting as a pattern, as I mentioned before, but if there's any little undercuts or roughness, that needs to be removed. But simply taking this and mushing it down like this on a flat surface, and most of what you see sticking out here is a waste. Now that's going to stick to the surface plate, but I had sprayed that earlier with this. It probably needs another shot. But using this green Play-Doh here, I removed pretty much what you see in the front here, because that's the flat part. And I talked about the parting planes in the other video. And then just working this down all the way around like this. Something like that. And you got to push that in, and I might even have to add a little bit more there. So it's just modeling, really, almost like a sculptor, although I'm far from being a sculptor. And this all needs to be brought down and tapered with pattern draft, and I've talked about pattern draft. Remember, a pattern will not pull out of the sand unless everything is tapered. So doing that, that's real rough. And you can see it's not fully flat on the back. It needs to be pushed down a little more like that. And then let's see if I can get it out of there. Alright, there's still some stuck on here, so I'll clean that off. See, that'll come right off. Because it's made for children to play with, so it's not really that messy. Now this needs a lot more work, and I'm going to show you that when I do this one, but that is the general principle. Now this is just waste, as I'm just demonstrating now, but that's what it looked like after working with it for a while. Everything's tapered back. And this one actually would be usable, because we only need it for one time. So that's a follow block, but I didn't like this whole method and I wasted half a day. So let me show you what else I came up with. Well, then I went to the other, they didn't have modeling clay. I just wanted some plain modeling clay, and I had in stock some Roma Plastilina. This is not Milky Way, it's just a Milky Way wrapper. But you know what Roma Plastilina is, just a high quality clay used by sculptors, but this has dried out a little bit, even though this, I believe, is oil based and doesn't ever really totally dry out. But I went to Walmart and I had to ask him, and I said, I can't find the modeling clay. I was in the toy department. He said, well, you got to go to Crafts. So I went to Crafts and I found, and this was $6 or $7, but this is oven baked clay. And I thought, well, how great is that? So I'll experiment with that. So 1 pound, a lot more than what I needed, and it looks something like this. Matter of fact, it looks exactly like this. So it has the consistency of modeling clay, but it can be baked, but baked at a low temperature, a temperature of 250, because this is made, again, for children. So that's a fairly safe temperature to work with. So I thought, well, this might work, and I wonder how hard it gets. Well, after I baked it for about 45 minutes at 250, and this is several days ago, it is quite hard. Now, not as hard as, let's say, a China drinking cup, coffee cup, but quite firm compared to the Play-Doh that I just showed you. It sounds a little rubbery when I drop it, but it's really just the nuts. Now, this finished one, of course, it's interesting to note, remember this is the one I made yesterday. This is the original. This is aluminum. It will not fit on here. Why won't it fit? It won't fit because this has shrunk. Remember that a casting is always smaller than the pattern. Go back and watch that other video now if you do not know what I mean by an irregular parting line. Remember how I laid that out with the green Sharpie to show you an irregular parting line as opposed to a flat back or a flat parting plane or parting line. So I'm going to take a piece of this Walmart clay here. They had another one there too. It was even more expensive. It was made, I believe, in the Netherlands or someplace. It wasn't Chinese. Matter of fact, I wonder where this is made. Oh, it's made in USA. That's a shocker. No wonder it cost $7. Elk Grove Village. That's not too far from me. So I'm going to take this white clay, and it doesn't smell like children's modeling clay that, like when I was a kid. They came in different colors. I'm going to warm it up just a little bit with my body heat by kneading it. And I might need just a little more than that. Give me a few minutes and I'll be right back with you. But I'm also going to take some of this, in the meantime, silicone spray and spray this. It's like Pam. Spread it around nicely. That needed a good cleanup anyway. Alright, I'll be back in a minute. Do you know what? Quite a few years ago, I think in '09, I made a video similar to this, and it was a two-part video, and you can see where I'm using an older camera and older techniques, and I was just learning how to make videos, I guess. But this is the cover off of a Maytag flywheel for the magneto adjustment, and it's a compound curve. So I showed at that time how to part down, and I think also how to make a follow block. So that you watch that video if your little heart desires. So I changed the game plan here because I need to put this in the oven. So this is my little serving tray, and I already sprayed that with silicone. I sprayed the inside of the bottle opener, and again I'm kneading this. So that's about at 98 degrees. So just setting that on the plate. You know what, that still feels like it sticks. I'm going to take the bottle opener and press it in like this. You can see I got a lot more clay there than what I need. So I'm going to work that down as close to the steel plate as I can get it. See how that oozes out? Okay, I need to work that just a little bit off camera. Okay, a few minutes have passed, and that's what it looks like on the back side. We got a lot of extra clay there, and I suspect some of you still don't know what I'm doing here. But now I need to remove the excess clay, which is probably starting about here. I don't need any of that. And there's way too much here. And here, and here, and I suppose here. Now what I'm going to do with my fingers is to press this in like that, and everything tapered away. Way too much clay there. You see, I'm trying to work it so it looks something like this. And by the way, if there's any voids in here, for instance, there's a void, I could care less. None of this matters. It really matters outside here and where you see it here, and that it's all a fairly good fit. And some of this I trimmed back after it was heated up. Okay, I'm going to continue with that, and I think I'm going to do this in fast motion. I'm going to speed it up a little bit so you can see what my hands are doing, if it makes any sense to you. And there'll be no dialogue with that. Be like Myford Boy. That took about 15 minutes, and you can see the transition here. And it still needs a little more work, and it's messy. I had considered, when I was selecting media, of using molding plaster, because I've had quite a bit of experience with molding plaster, but I guarantee you it's rather unforgiving, and it picks up the minutest details, and it would probably be almost impossible to get this to release from molding plaster. It just wouldn't happen. But I noticed that they did sell it there at Walmart also. It sets up real fast. Some of you know it as plaster of Paris, so you don't have much time to work. Well, this took a lot of time. So was this any faster than me parting it down as you saw me do in the previous video? No, but I'm just showing you a different technique, and this may be necessary sometimes in your work. Some follow blocks can be made of wood if the pattern is more rectangular in shape, but this is rather free form. So now what I want to do is rather than bake it right now, and I haven't tried that, maybe that would work, to bake it just like it is and get it to release, but I'm going to try to get the casting, the pattern off of the clay. It's going to be a bit of a struggle, and I'll do that off of camera, and I know there's a tendency for it to want to stick and tear apart as you do that. So I hope that my silicone helps a little bit. So see you in a minute. Alright, I did show that in fast motion. It worked out a little better than I thought. I'm going to take just a little bit off. This is still soft, and I had a few cracks, but that doesn't matter. If there's any voids up here, it doesn't matter at all. Matter of fact, if I had a big chunk missing out of here, you know, what would that hurt? Nothing. So I'm going to take a little bit off of here so I don't have to struggle with that later on. And do some more trimming. Then I'm going to go up to the kitchen, and I already have the oven at 250 preheating a little bit. But I'm not going to use this. I've got one made, so I'm not going to go through all that work again because there's nothing to see as I bake it. So this piece was just a demonstration piece. Again, sure looks like something the dentist would do, doesn't it? Makes me sick. And it would cost $3,000 for that. You know how cheap I am. So this is what I'm going to use as this is my follow block. And just for the heck of it, remember this is the one with the X on it that I've been using, which is number 11. There's a number there. And I need to clean this up, get the extra clay off of it. I wonder if number 25 fits on this. It seems to be a good fit, so I could use either one. Now you see what the follow block does. So when I go to cast this up in a few minutes, when I meet you out in my foundry, there'll be very little need for me to use the spoon, or there'll be no need to part it down because this is already done. Again, this would be useless unless you just were going to make a lot of them, because probably a total of 2 hours is spent making this. Well, you can part it down in your foundry area in, what, 2 or 3 minutes. So this would be something that would be necessary for production, where they're going to make thousands of these, and probably something you'd never do in your home. Matter of fact, I venture a guess that out of the 10,000 people that will watch this, nobody will ever do it. But it's just an interesting thing to see. It's all guess and bagage, but yet there's a method to this madness, a reason for tapering everything down. So I hope you found that interesting, and this is, again, the product from Wally Worlds. It stays soft until you bake it, you see, like this, but I want it to be hard. And the other thing about this, I thought, well, it's going to shrink. A lot of products shrink when you bake them, but it didn't seem to shrink. So this is really a nice piece. It worked out so well. And again, remember, any of the roughness in here doesn't matter. You know, I could drill a hole right here. And I did a lot of trimming with this originally. So enough gabbing. Let's go on out to the foundry area and ram one up using my follow block. Hope you enjoyed that. and that it wasn't too lengthy. I'm in my foundry at the molding bench. There's the follow block. I'm laying it a little bit off to the side, of course, so I have room for my sprue and my gate. And then the Coke bottle opener, as if anyone ever uses or opens a bottle anymore, other than twisting it off. So this is archaic, but everything I show you is archaic, so oh well. Some people like it, but I wish more people were watching these foundry videos. It sure seems to be a specialized item. Parting sand, and this is all a repeat here for you, so I'll speed this up a bit. And this is all freshly mulled Petrobond sand, oil based, oil bonded. This time I'm using a riddle rather than Terry's flour. And I'll flip it over. The first thing I have to do is to remove the follower block, no longer needed. You see, it's done its job. Set that off to the side in case I ever make any more, and that's highly unlikely. And I'll blow that off just a little bit. And again, a little parting dust. Now the top part, of course, is called the cope. That's the drag. And sand rammer, I thought that's a neat name. Alright, we're going to cut the sprue right here. My hairy arm in your way. In that last video, my gray hair was in your way. Not much I could do about that when I edited. I tried to take some of that out. Alright, and that's done. And now let's see if it withdraws, if it separates okay. Looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit of sand fell there. Not much. I want to flip this over and okay, and I'll cut a gate. If I can find the spoon. The gate is cut, and I got a little place right there to put my finger, so now I'm going to try to withdraw the pattern. Get my optivisor off so it doesn't keep getting in the way. There we go. I'm going to blow it out and it's ready to pour. Reassemble it, of course. You know, one mistake I made is I didn't clean this up well enough, and some of the clay caused the sand to stick. In other words, it was a sticky pattern. All right, let's pour this, and I'm not going to show that. Let's have a close-up look at that before I close it. And the cope. Does that follow block make sense to you now? The mold is poured and cooled for about 15 minutes, so let's see what she looks like. You got to be careful. The sand itself is as hot as the metal. I had more students get burned by sand over the years than they ever did by metal. Well, we'll let it cool a little bit. As a matter of fact, I'll quench it. Saw it off. You've seen me do all of that. And I'll see you down in the workshop where we can kind of give it a once-over. Back in the shop, and the casting is cool. Now I've got a few defects here where it fell in here, and even what you see back here, but the cause of that, and I'm a little ashamed to admit, is that I didn't clean up the pattern casting. That is, there was still a residue of clay on there, and the clay attracted the sand, or prevented the sand from separating, even though there was a little parting on there. Same here, you can still see the clay that's left on there. So that's the reason for those defects. But back to the casting. Let me clean this up a little bit. Remember, all castings needed cleaning up, unless they were die casting. So again, saw that off and that. You know, there's almost nothing to this aluminum. You know, when I poured it, it seemed like the mold didn't fill, because it filled just like that. And I always expect that the restriction right here would freeze off, but the metal was sufficiently hot to overcome that. So let me clean this up just a little bit, and you understand now the purpose of the follow block. Now, needless to say, this isn't going to fit on there because this has shrunk. Doesn't go all the way down. Remember, aluminum shrinks at the rate of 3/32 per foot. So each successive casting made from an original is a little bit smaller, and if you did about 300 in a row, this final bottle opener would be small enough to fit in a dollhouse. And as we come to a conclusion here, here's the original cast iron one. Here's the one I made in the previous video where I parted down. And finally the one made with a follow block, cleaned up a little bit with a file. Looking good. They weigh about half of what the cast iron one weighs. Should you ever need to make a follow block in this life or your next, that's how you do it. Highly unlikely, but it was a fun project. Hope you liked the videos. Leave a favorable comment if you are so inclined. This is tubalcain saying so long for now. You know what? I've developed a mighty powerful thirst after making this rather long video. I think I'll open myself a bottle of Boylan's root beer, which I never heard of before, but it's ice cold. That hit the spot. Sure glad I had an opener.